G'day, my name's Kim. I want to talk just for a few minutes on the church and the church as a community. I want to do that in three little bits, and then after that I want to talk about what the implications of what these three things are. I'll be starting by talking about some of the foundational truths that we have to base our thinking on, and in doing that, it really requires that we spend time with God about what He said. It really requires chucking out our old thinking and taking on board the things that are in keeping with God's truth. So there's a real process that's involved in taking hold of things that are true, and God will help us with that. We rely upon Him for that. So this is just by way of intro, and the first thing I want to talk about is what is the church, and I want to talk about it primarily in terms of the word ecclesia, because ecclesia is the Greek word that the Bible uses where we use the English word church. That word means an assembly or a gathering, but the root of the word actually has the idea of being called out. The word was often used in a political context where the people would be called out from their homes to a particular meeting of some kind, usually for political reasons. And this is a very helpful word because Christians are called out people. We are called out from the world, and we are called to Jesus. When we think of the word church, we're to understand that it is a word that describes a people who gather to Him. We assemble to Him, and that's the key idea behind it. We're basically called by Father to come to Jesus, but not just as individuals, but as a people together, to gather to Him. Consequently, when we think about that, we're not to think that we've been called to an organization of some kind, but instead we've been called to a person. We're not called to a building. We're not called to a particular leadership or a particular church or a particular denomination. We're called to a person, and in being part of Jesus's church, we need to think that way. We need to go, hey, we are called to Him, and that is fundamentally what it means to be the church. Having said that, in terms of understanding that we assemble to Him, we are a people who are the church, regardless of whether we're at work or at uni or at home or actually assembling together as a meeting of the church. That's really important. There are other implications. It means there are no solo Christians. There's nobody who's just got this thing between God and it's not between God and me. It's always between God, between Christ, between the Spirit and us. That's how we're to understand the church. There are no rejected Christians. There are no Christians who are sort of in but not in. We understand that all of us are called to Jesus, and there are no fringe Christians who sit somewhere on a fence somewhere, who are sort of out of the church and in the church and those sorts of concepts. If we are part of the church, if we have been called by Jesus, we are the church of Jesus. We are those gathered to Him, and that's really important. Having said that, it's important that we don't see ourselves primarily connected to anything other than to Jesus. And through being gathered to Him, we have a connection with each other. That's important as well. So I want you to, if you've got some time, reflect on that. Reflect on how you see the idea of church. Do you see it as an institution? Do you see it as an organization? Do you see it as a denomination? Do you see it as your particular church, whichever that church might be? Or do you see the church as defined by a people called to live in relation to Jesus? That's the first thing.